ask questions, but we are recording it.
Okay.
Okay, so can you see the Bevica demo screen?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing we wanted to show you was that Microsoft have done a bit of work on changing the way that the ribbons work on the software. So they've tried to tidy it up. So this is the older version where, for example, on posting and release, you click into it and then you click release. If you want to get access to what they're calling the modern action bar, you go to feature management and you type in what you're looking for. So modern action bar, and then you click on try it out so you can see how it works. And this you can switch it on and off until Q2 the year after next, after which they'll force everyone to go onto this new action bar. So you can decide if you want to use it or not. And when you click on try it out, it just changes the look and the feel of the options. So for example, now if I click, you can see that they're all a bit tighter, and I can click release directly, or I can click the drill down and pick from any of the three options. So I think they're trying to just make it a bit more compact and easier to get to places. So users will notice the difference, and we will have made a few changes to the Bevica options kind of behind the scenes to make it fit with this new way of working. Okay, the next thing that we've done is being able to set duty status by location. So if I go to a location and, for example, run my fuchsia location, you'll see that here in the allowed duty status, I've got the option of blank means duty free and duty paid, or I can set specifically duty free or duty paid. So you set that at the location level. And then, for example, if I did a purchase order for the fuchsia location, so let me do a quick one. So it's duty free. Oops, let me come down here and change the location. And put a product in. And now when I try and, if I try and release, oops, where's release? Release is there. I get an error message saying that I can't do that because it doesn't match the criteria against the location. So that sales orders, purchase orders, transfer orders, everything except the item journal at the moment. We left the item journal open so that potentially you could fix errors. Okay. Right. Next thing is sales document type codes. So if I go to a sales order and create a new order, for the pickled egg pub, we have the option here on the side of sales document type. So this can be, primarily this at the moment is used for reporting, but what you can also do is you can set defaults against each type, that when you add it to the order, it'll set the location, the customer price group, and the discount group if they're different from what's come across as standard from the customer. If you leave it blank, it won't make any changes at all. So for example, if I made this one a withdrawal type order, oops, no, that wasn't the one I wanted. So if I make it a trade sale, and then I scroll down, you'll see that it's changed the price group and the discount group to whatever was on that particular status document type. We've also got a sales identifier that we're using to manage functionality in the system. So at the moment, if you have the cellerage extension in the system, this is how the system knows or Bevica knows that it's a cellerage type document. And then that information is held on the header and the lines. So if I put a product in, put a quantity in, and then I do a zoom on the line, and I look for the product, you'll see there that in this particular case, the document type, it knows the document type from the header. So if you're doing reporting of your posted invoices or you're exporting stuff, that information is also there so you can report on it. Okay. So that was sales document types. The next thing that we've done a bit of work on is item groups. So if I go to my item list, you'll see here that we've got an item group code. So the idea of the item group code was to try and merge item sales together so you can have kind of a consolidated view, or begin to have a consolidated view of product sales against your items. So the idea is, if I open up an item, we have the code here on the header. So the way that it's set up in this particular environment, the group is the product excluding the vintage, but all for 75 cents a litre, in this case, items. So if I drill into that and select from the full list, so these are my item groups for my kind of fast moving type products that move from vintage to vintage. So there are two things we can do with item group codes. If we associate them to all the items, then kind of the most obvious thing that it gives us is an item group MAT report by the codes. So if I remove that filter there. So what we're looking at here is, oh, excuse me a second. I just need to change my settings, my work date. Set OK to that. Cancel that, just open it up again. So go to my, come here and remove the filter so we see them all. So now you'll see we've actually got some figures for the sales, for all the items that are within each group. So if I click onto one of these to have a look at the actual details, you'll see that on the item number, we've got different item numbers, but they're all the same item group. So that's quite useful if you know, for follow-on vintages and the MAT report. The other thing you can do with the item group codes is to use them for forecasting. So again, because we know the sales of all these items beneath these item groups, we've written a routine that will create a planning forecast given some attributes that we've added here to the lines, and then that forecast can be used on your requisition worksheet to suggest purchase orders. And the idea here is that that's the code that identifies the group, but this field here is the current item that you want to replenish. So if you had, 4 or 5 vintages, you would populate this field with the latest vintage because that's the one that you want to create the purchase order for. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Right, if I go back now to look at some things we've added to Bevica setup. So in Bevica setup, so we introduced quite a while ago a number of these user-defined fields. So these are blank fields on the item record that you can decide how you want to use them. So if you've got some miscellaneous way you want to add information against the product that's not already there, you've got all these extra fields. So we've got lookup fields, Booleans, yes or no, number fields, and this is one that we've added recently, so the code field. So all you need to do is just type in the kind of the name of the piece of information you want, then that will appear automatically on the item, and you can start populating and using it in filters and searches and reports and so on. Inventory price list. So we've done a little bit of work on the inventory price list. Feel free to ask questions if you like. You're both muted at the moment. So Nella's joined us. Welcome, Nella. Feel free to ask questions. There's not a lot of us on the call. Right. So what was I doing? Inventory price list. So the inventory price list is trying to summarize against an item certain prices and certain inventory levels. So if I go to the inventory price list setup, so I don't know if you've played around with this, but the idea is that you tell the system for a number of columns on the list how you want to filter pricing. So you've got 3 pricing columns and you have 2 columns for stock. So for example, in this one here, I want the system to show me stock in my bronze location that's only duty free, and I want to see available stock as opposed to projected stock. And then you can do similar things with the pricing. The new bits that we've added here, in fact, we've added 2 things. The first thing is the ability to tell the system whether you want to look at the prices and the costs either in the base quantity or in the sales unit of measure quantity. So some people prefer to see it in cases, some people prefer to see it in bottles. So you can decide, and it changes the display when you run the report. So if I open up the inventory price list, this is a routine that typically you would run overnight and it updates. So here, all the prices and the inventory, the price and the cost will be in the base rather than the sales unit measure. But again, I can change that in the setup, so everyone will see it either one or the other. And then the other quite neat thing we've done to this list is if we've added a sales quantity column. So by default, it's hidden. So if you personalize and bring across sales quantity, there we go. So by default, when you open it, it'll show you all sales for all customers from year dot for that particular product. And like everything else in the system, you drill down on it and it shows you the actual entries that make up that figure. But because it's a flow field, I can add my own filters to that particular field. So I can make it specific to a customer and a date range. So here's one I prepared earlier. So here I'm looking at all the sales for the Asado Bar and Grill in the year 2019. So you'll see the figures here have changed. And then if I click on that, this will have filtered it on that particular customer and date range. So it makes it a bit more useful if you wanted to have prices and customer, kind of a little bit of customer information all on the same screen. Okay. Next thing we have is a little tweak we've done to descriptions on item ledger entries. So if I go to my item list and then look at the item ledger entries for this product. So look at the item ledgers. So this is the scenario where you might have receipted a product, but there's something unique about that product that you want to add to it, but it's not a rotation number, it's not a best before date, it's just a little snippet of information. So what you can do is find the receipts that you did. So if I highlight that one, and then do actions, functions, item ledger entry, edit. So this screen here is where you can also change the rotation number, best before date if you want, but it also lets you change the description on the line. So you're not changing any posted information, anything financial. It's literally just the ability to add a little piece of information on the item ledger entry. So let's just Maybe I wanted to record that it came from a particular parcel, or there's something unique about it that I want people to know about. So you save that there, and then when I close this, you'll see that it updates that particular description just on the item ledgers. So that in itself is quite useful, but you can also use that when you're placing a sales order. So if I create a new sales order, new, create it for the pickled egg pub. Do it that way. And then I put a line. So I'm ordering one of that. If I do functions, Bevica reservations, I want to assign that to an item ledger entry. You'll see here on the description, we're copying across the description from the item ledger entry over to here the reservation. So I've got a little bit more information as well as rotation number and best before dates if I want to. So this is kind of a light version of these fields here. And if I had changed the description on the purchase order here would also have that specific description that's on the purchase order line. Again, just trying to make it a bit easier to understand potentially what you're ordering if it's unique. So here I'd select that. And now it's reserved against that particular item ledger entry with that piece of information. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to show you was a little tweak we've done on purchasing. So if I go to purchase orders, do a new purchase order for my French supplier. Now, down here as standard, you have an option to select items. So if I click that, this opens up the full item list of every single product that you've got that isn't blocked or blocked for purchasing. But to try and make things a little bit easier, we've added a new option called select vendor items that does the same thing, but it filters it on items that you've said you buy from that particular supplier. So this is hopefully a shorter, more manageable list. So what you can do here, for example, you can try and start finding the products you want. Then if you want a few of them, you can just click on a few, say okay, and then it adds those automatically to the purchase orders. You can also, the same way that you have favorites or wine lists on the customer side, you can create favorites or wine lists on the purchase side, which is kind of a predefined list that you can bring across automatically when you create the purchase order. But this is like a halfway house where you've got a bit of filtering and kind of just makes it that little bit easier to find the products you want on the purchase order. Okay, that was the whistle-stop tour of some of the kind of the new features we've added. The next release we're going to do on Bevica is planned for this month, and it'll be kind of our phase one of Exceller and commission ordering, where we're going to start making it easier to create sales orders and then associated purchase orders for Exceller orders and commission orders. So you'll get a notification when that gets released with the Freshdesk link on how to manage that. And then the next time I do this, I'll talk people through how that works. Any questions? Okay. Oh, there's a question. Okay. Okay, so if no one has any questions or wants to put anything in the chat, then we'll wrap it up.